Hi everybody, it's Christy from Knittin in the Heights. Welcome back. Today is Vlogust number 4, so this should be August the 4th, but in reality it is August the 1st. Joining us today is my dear friend Josh, who is also a knitter and also a viola player. He is a teaching artist for the program that we both work for, and yeah, he's going to show you his works in progress. All right, Josh, take it away. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. So, I have probably been knitting about the same amount. Well, I got my start knitting around the same time that I got my start in music. So that was about fourth or fifth grade, and I can't remember which, but it was with two other boys in my class. We ended up going to this needlepoint club that was one of the clubs we could choose from as like an extracurricular, and it happened to meet before school, I believe, once or twice a week. This was again in elementary school, so we were there maybe 7 a.m. With this fantastic, sweet older woman who was teaching us crochet, knitting, and cross stitch basics. So that was how I got my start. And after that year, I hadn't really even thought about it because, you know, music, when you go for music as a career, things take over. But I found my way back to knitting thanks to my lovely friend Chrissy. So we have been embarking on some adventures together, and I've been veering off into other directions. So as of late, I did not realize until just now, I actually have 9 WIPS. So this is fun. This is a nice little deep dive. I think I will start with the oldest projects first.
Sounds good. I think, one thing that I just want to tell the people that are watching today is yesterday we talked about doing this project. And it's funny when you take your whips out, we were talking about, he was thinking about, should I frog something or something like that. But sometimes when you take out a project, it's amazing. You kind of fall back in love with it. So that was part of our conversation. And so I guess today, Josh will share with you some of the things he's fallen back in love with by just looking at what he has on the needles. So Josh, what is your first project?
So the first project that I found that was unfinished is a pair of Frankensocks from two of the first balls of yarn that I had. So this first ball of yarn, I can't remember exactly what it was, but you actually gifted it to me.
Yeah, so that's a homespun house, and I'm trying to remember the colorway, but it was based on is it a Game of Thrones colorway maybe? But it was from a homespun house, and the reason Josh was gifted this was that skein yarn was a present from my ex-husband, and I just didn't want that mojo in my life, and Josh happily took it off my hands.
And that yarn actually became my very first pair of socks that I knit uh, way back early last year, early 2022. So those socks actually went to my partner, who loves them dearly and wears them every opportunity. So that was this color. This other color was just, I think, it was maybe Regia yarn that I had gotten because I wanted to start doing socks. So they were two of maybe 3 or 4 different sock yarns that I had. I was trying to make it work, but I ran out of both before I could finish the second sock.
So it looks like you're just gonna have to choose like a mini or something from your stash or some leftovers or something because they're Franken socks. Might as well make them really Frankenstein like, right?
Exactly. I might just take a severe left turn and do something crazy for that too.
Well, so how much do you think you have left? I mean, looking at it, it's like probably like only 3 or 4 rows, maybe if that, of the toe, and then Kitchener, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I am not sure why. Oh, I think I had just put it away thinking I would come back to it relatively soon. That didn't happen.
that sounds about right. So they're shorty
So,
socks. Yeah, so they're shorty socks, right?
yes, and I am not, I have to count the rows because I am not sure who I was knitting these for size-wise.
That's hilarious. And so you have a Ravelry page as well, right? So what is your Ravelry handle in case anybody wants to, Or you can just say
Let
it
me
and I can type it later. I'll put it in the video.
let me look that up. Oh, okay. So it's I'm pretty simple with usernames. So it's literally my last name, Hunton, like hunt on, and then first two initials, JM.
Cool.
That's
So I'll
kind
put
of
that on the screen down here, and I'm pointing down there so that I remember to put it on the screen. Cool. So Hunt and JM for Ravelry, and isn't that that's your Insta handle as well, isn't it? Or is it something?
my
Oh no, you
Insta. No, I think my Insta, if I remember correctly, is IDK something apropos.
okay. I'll put that down below as well in case you want to follow Josh, because he does actually post some knitting pics from every once in a while.
I post pics generally every once in a while. so don't be surprised if you do not see pictures of things.
Awesome. Awesome. So did you ever, like, when you did these Frankensocks, did you put them on Ravelry, or was that something that you just didn't think to do so you could know who it was for?
I don't think so. Looking through my projects, I did post that first pair of socks that I
Mm,
knit for my partner using that entire they were made entirely of that yarn you gifted me.
cool. And I think the colorway name was like Sam and Gilly or something like that.
Actually, you are absolutely right. Did I put that in the project? I did not. I need to do that.
Yeah,
But yes, it was Sam and Gilly. You were
cool.
correct.
Awesome. Good memory
Nice.
sometime. Yeah.
Yes.
So what's project number
So
two?
project number 2, that is the ZickZack scarf. So for my first scarf project, I had not yet started working on a shawl. This was actually before you, shortly before you and I started the Botanic together. But I decided to double the pattern and use 8 balls of yarn. And this is fingering weight. It is 100% wool. Okay, 100% merino, fine wool,
Yeah, so
2.5 needles.
what's the name of the yarn? What type of yarn is it? Like who's
It
the
is Lang Yarns, Meal Calori Baby.
awesome. And is it multiple colorways or is it the same colorway?
I am using, I believe, 2 or 4 different colorways. I did not pull out all of the different labels, but just to give you a hint, here is one that is going on as part of the new changeover. These balls, if I remember correctly, I just knit into this. But to give you an idea of just the effect of the yarn, maybe which view? There we go. To give a better effect of how the yarn stripes, it doesn't really seem to need any crazy amount of planning in terms of matching up colors.
Yeah,
But
no, that's awesome.
the
It looks beautiful.
yeah, thank you. I think up until okay, so this is the bottom edge. So up until maybe here was up until this kind of lilac and yellow and green color here. Up until there, I believe those were the first 2 balls of yarn,
Yeah, that's
and they were
gorgeous.
in, I
So you
believe, the same
literally just
colorway.
doubled the number of stitches, right, from the pattern because it's originally designed as a scarf. To make it a shawl and you wanted a large rectangular shawl, you literally just doubled that, right?
Yes, so I am a big fan of the blanket shawls or blanket scarves, or
And the
as you call them, did
schlanket,
you call them a schlanket?
the schlanket.
Exactly. I like something that you can put on in the winter and if you wanted to, just fall asleep in it. So that was the goal with this. So I doubled the width, which, haha, joke's on me.
Yeah, because
So
that like doubles the time, doesn't it? And it's fingering weight.
it kind of felt like it quadrupled the time. Yeah, that was why I put that down for it has probably been a year or more. but I'm going to come back to it because I'm much faster at knitting now, and this was a pretty simple pattern, but the repeats within each row are, I think now will be close enough together because I'm faster, so I won't be lulling myself to sleep through each of the repeats, each of the chevron zigzags. But yeah, it's beautiful now that I can
Yeah.
see
I
it
know
from afar.
I know when you put it away, you're really sick of it. And I think this is one of those cases in point when you put something away for a while, you kind of fall back in love with it. Because yesterday we were talking about it. You went to go grab it because you were talking about, I don't know what to do with this thing. I think I might frog it. And then I was like, well, you could turn it into pillow cushion. And you're like, yeah, maybe. And so you pulled it out and it was like a good size. It could be a pillow cushion. I'm saying the right words. Yes, pillow cushion. But then you looked at it and you're like, no, but I really actually like this. I want this for myself. And yeah.
Yeah, and it may not end up being a scarf, as we discussed. It could very well be a table runner. Could use it as like a mini throw or as something just to, decorate the couch a little bit.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. I think let me see. This one's an easy one. So a dish scrubby.
Okay.
Um, I decided to do I believe it's called the Tribble. Let me double check that pattern. It is, yes, the Tribble dish scrubber. So the way that, the yarn I'm using for this is another yarn you gifted me, the Creo. And this this ball has lasted forever. I thought I was going to get through it, and I haven't. I already made one dish scrubby with it, made another dishcloth, and the dishcloth I had actually held this double, and it's still going.
Yeah, it's a ball of
So
yarn that keeps on going, right?
it's great. So you knit it in this kind of, how would you describe this? Rhombus or parallelogram type pattern? Yeah, it's like at the ends, at one end, I can't remember if it's okay, so that's the starting row. Each time you start a row, I believe you either knit two together or do some type of decrease of one stitch, and then at the end of the row you do a knit front and back.
All right. So this is a free pattern.
It is a free pattern.
Yay!
Hallelujah. All right.
Hallelujah.
Yes. So
Okay, so you knit this like parallelogram. Then what happens when you finish knitting the parallelogram?
so as soon as you finish that, you pretty much lay it flat with I guess lengthwise, and then you fold over each of those pointed ends,
Mm-hmm.
and you use the tail to sew it together. And what I did last time I made this, ended up a little smaller than I wanted, so I went up on needle size. But once that's sewn together, then I used the leftover of the tail, and you actually go through these loops on both edges or on both sides, and you pull one really tight through. I pulled the tail through the middle, and then cinched all the others through as well, and then knotted off.
And so it creates like a scrubby because it's like multi-layered, right? So yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool. That's a cool way to create
yeah,
that.
and so the if I used like a variegated or a self-striping yarn, you'd see how it kind of creates this spiral effect.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Okay, cool. And
yeah.
so this Creo yarn is 100% cotton, is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. And the colorway, I remember the colorway. It was like a dark blue that had like hints of like bronze or something. It was really kind of a cool color, right?
Yeah, it looks like this really cool kind of, really dark denim,
Yeah.
like dark indigo type of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the flecks of the bronze in this are just lovely.
Yeah. And the reason Josh got it is, yeah, I don't like knitting with cotton very much unless like I can do it, but it's not my favorite. I prefer wool or yeah, I just really just prefer wool. Actually, we've made because of the allergy to other things. Yeah, wool is just the thing I love to knit. Cool. So what's your next project?
And, well, after you said that about the cotton, yes, I took I've been taking a fun little adventure into cotton, linen, and viscose knitting. So, it's summertime, and I figured I need to at least try it, see what it's like. Maybe maybe some of the patterns will make it not so rough on my hands. So the next pattern I did, this was actually not in cotton. So this is going to be the one before we get to all the cotton stuff. But nope, I skipped one. We're doing chronological. So next project that I started was the Nardoo shawl by Ambah O'Brien. And this one I think this might actually be possibly that same yarn from the Frankensocks. Nope, it's off. I think this was also actually a yarn maybe you gifted me.
It's
Because
possible.
yeah, I think the first handful of yarns I had were from the little starter set you gave me. So that was I can't remember which one that is. I probably have the label somewhere. But this is definitely from the Regia sock yarn. And what I really love is kind of this, I don't know if you can see it. Let me know if I need to give it a different angle, but this kind of chevron pattern, but it's this very netted mesh stretchy holy
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah, Josh is the fan of the holy, stretchy mesh kind of knitting, that kind of lacy effect, but not necessarily feminine, kind of like more graphic looking mesh designs with a lot of chevrons. So yeah, it's not a surprise that there's a lot of things that are like in these really cool geometrics either. Like the fact that even the dish scrubby is not like just a square or not just a circle, it's something a little different. Does not surprise me.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of asymmetry. Texture is a big one for me. I think I've realized of all the knitting techniques that I've learned so far, the ones I really like and have gravitated towards involve a large textural element to the technique. So the first one I fell in love with was cable knitting. I really enjoy cable knitting. It's fun for me to knit and to throw all these stitches around and to cable knit without an extra needle. So figuring that out, I like the problem solving part of that, which also is why I like brioche. So far, I have not delved too deep into it, so don't hold me to it. I may become a little disillusioned. There are some really cool patterns that you've shown me that are mind-blowing, and I am not sure if I looked at the pattern if I would feel the same way.
Yeah, no,
But
it's so
you
funny
never
because
know.
like people that are watching won't know that like we talk almost every single day, and sometimes it's talking about our work or whatever, but it eventually goes into patterns. And we're like, I'm like, did you see this pattern? And or you'll be like, oh, I really want to find a pattern for this, and I'm like, well, let's go on Ravelry, and we will totally do this deep surfing dive on Ravelry it's like almost every time we talk. We'll talk about patterns or whatever. So like this is like a normal conversation, except we don't normally record them. Cool. So do you
So
know it's a
yes,
Regia yarn you're using on that shawl, right?
yes,
Cool.
yes. It's I think it's just one of the regular sock fingering weight sock yarns, the with the polyamide.
Cool. And how much do you think you have left of that? Like as far as to
Uh,
finish that shawl off?
as far as the pattern goes, I am probably 3/4 to I would probably say 80 to 90% of the way through the pattern, but it's in the long rows now. and it also does not specify when to end. It leaves it like open to how big you want the shawl, and you know me. So
Bigger the better.
it could end up being a big old tarp by the time I'm done with it. Who knows?
Or until there's no more yarn.
Right, exactly. I might be able to take it out to sea and catch some fish with it.
All right. That sounds good to me. I'm coming over for dinner with that. All right, cool. What's your next project?
So this is these are the uh easy slippers. I believe this was a free pattern as well. And the yarns I chose for it, I like the contrast yarn that I picked. It's leftover from some other sock slippers I made. It's the Fibra Natura Cobblestone, 100% superwash merino. It's this kind of blend of browns, greens, blues, indigo. Yeah, I like my cool tones and I like my neutrals. This gray that I picked though, this kind of gray stone gray, it's after knitting it up. It wasn't my favorite choice of main color, but they're socks.
Yeah, that's all right. That's cool. So what do you have left to do on those?
I literally just need to Kitchener up the toe and then sew up the heel. I'm
Bring it to
so
camp
this is
tomorrow and I will Kitchener for it. You like, 'cause I love
no, that's
Kitchener.
oh no, Kitchenering is not the problem. It's the sewing in the ends. So this is the conversation we had recently. I am awful about sewing in ends. Like I will basically have a project complete except have all these ends hanging out and I'm just like, I'll get to it. What's the next thing?
Hilarious. That's so funny. Cool. Well, okay, so that literally could be done in a couple of hours if you wanted it to be.
Oh, I mean, I think just finishing those off would take 30 minutes tops. It's it's dumb why I have not finished them.
Like you could
They've
literally
been
sit on
sitting
the
here.
subway on your way to something and yeah, and just get it done. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I like the act of knitting and I love the process of it and seeing what comes out. And then the finishing, it's like if there's no deadline to gift it to someone or I'm not in a rush to start using it myself, then it can sit there for a second. But now we're getting to the summer items that I started, so I need to get cracking on finishing these while they're still wearable and don't need more layers.
Cool. So let's see some of those.
So this next project, this is the Capelet tank, which it was patterned or I'm always unsure of when garments are patterned for women or if the way it's listed is just bust size because that's the easiest to describe for both is just right here.
I think generally it can be the largest part of a person, because so I think, but I think sometimes, I think that is a good question. And any of our viewers that are watching, if you want to talk, you can just comment down below. When it comes to chest measurements, because we've had this conversation, because it's not uncommon that Josh will be gravitating towards something that looks like it was designed for a woman, but he wants to wear it as a man. Like, should he bother going with chest size? Like, what should be his largest measurement? Is it still chest size? Because I think for a lot of men too, it is the largest part of their torso, right? I mean, they might have a big belly, but I mean, let's just be real. But like at the same time, like, that point, I think that point right under the arms, if that's tight on anyone, I think it'd be uncomfortable. But I'm just curious what people think about that because, there's a lot of patterns that it's just not clear if they're patterned for a man or for a woman. They could be worn by men, but I think because we talked about how the knitting community is so predominantly women as far as the people who are designing patterns. There are exceptions, obviously. Maxime, what's his last name? Sear, I think it is, and Stephen West, and there there's a few more. There's lots more actually of male knitters who are also pattern designers, but the question is, what do you do if something may be written, you know, I guess the pattern, it looks like all the pictures are of women wearing the sweater. Like, what should a male knitter do with that? Should they do any adjustments, you know, or should they just leave it as is? So, I mean, I think it is actually worth a conversation. So if anybody has ideas, put them down below.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes. So, before I had delved in too deep into the sizing and maybe reasons why things are patterned out for certain amounts of stitches, like on front versus back, I just did a cursory Google search of how to adapt women's knitwear for men. And from some of the questions, similar questions that I saw posted, I gathered that for men, the big difference is you need a wider back and slightly narrower front, but the back is also a lot longer than patterns that are made for women. So that's an adjustment that is necessary if it's not already in the pattern. So that is what I actually did with this capelet tank, because it unlike a couple patterns that I've seen recently where they will say option 1 or for chart 1 or whatever, this is for people who tend to wear clothing made for women, and then option 2 for men. But for patterns that don't specify, in this one I noticed the forgot what you call it, the I'm thinking sewing, not seam allowance, the stretch,
Yeah,
positive ease.
the positive ease. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So positive ease. So the positive ease for capelet tank was very much in the front. It was patterned out, I think, for somewhere between 16 and 26 extra stitches on the front compared to the back. And I assumed, because it was a woman modeling the design, that was to allow for bust allowance. So I decided to basically take the same sizing as I would for, I went a size up. I measure 40 inches at the largest part of my chest. So I went one size up in the pattern for a 42-inch bust. And so I used that back, I used the stitches, amount of stitches per row for the back. And then when it came to, so main reason why I picked this pattern, the cowl neck. So after doing this really cool seed stitch cowl neck in larger needles, I when it got to actually getting to the neck and the yoke and splitting for the armholes, that was when I decided to make the adjustment for the front. And I think I didn't use the amount of stitches indicated in the pattern anywhere for the front. I kind of did it, I forgot how, I have it written down somewhere. I'll put my alteration notes up on my project when after I sew in the ends.
So
So
yeah, no. So can you actually? Is it okay? Can you put on what you have? Is it possible? It's not on the needle right now, right?
yeah, no, not at all.
Cool. Yeah, because this is
Again,
really cool. Yeah, and
don't mind the holes from the ball change
no. I
over.
know you haven't shown in your ends yet. Yeah, I remember you showing me the picture of when you got this, like, to this point. And you have to understand, Josh is a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and then he recorded himself speaking Elvish to me, because it was
Yes,
like, you know, he was like besties with Legolas. It was actually pretty epic because I got that
it
one.
it totally reminded me of Arwen.
Yeah.
And let me see. I cannot remember which one's the front or the back. This is so silly. I'll put it on and figure it out.
Yeah. It'll
It,
be one way
it,
or the other. You'll figure it out. One side's gonna be tighter, right? So
yeah, only one way to find out. I should probably, do people put tags
yeah,
on
they
the
do.
inside of their,
Yeah,
okay.
you can actually
See,
get special tags that, you know, you can actually order some that have your name if you want or whatever. So yeah.
brilliant. People are thinking.
Yeah.
So Okay, I think I lucked out.
Okay, yeah, it looks like you did.
Okay. Yes. So, oh, okay. But this is no, nope. I think it's backwards.
Okay.
But yeah, so I wanted this pattern because yes, I do love the cowl neck, but the way that it showed in the pictures of the pattern, the different ways you could wear the cowl neck and kind of get the most out of one piece of clothing, wearing it like four different ways. I thought that was brilliant. So, oh man, I really hope this is the right way this time. I think it is. This feels better.
Yeah, that looks better actually. Okay, cool.
Okay. So I love the cowl neck because it's a nice little feature. And I like drapey things. I like things that even if it is more form fitting, there's some kind of contrast, some kind of looseness. So with this, I really liked being able to have like a little mock hood.
Yeah, it looks like
And
you're
this
wearing
was,
chainmail, which is super cool, actually. Yeah.
yeah, so that was when I was thinking Lord of the Rings, and you mentioned Mithril. So,
Yep.
for those who also get it. um, so yeah, some of the adjustments I also made were around the armhole. It has this little kind of these little holes patterned in. And I wanted to continue that at the bottom edge. So I decided to add that detail along that bottom edge as well.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to extending the length of the tank.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess in the picture it also had um, the model wearing it kind of draped across
Mm-hmm.
their shoulders like this. I, unless I'm absolutely freezing, I wouldn't.
Or yeah, or if you need a straight jacket for the day. I mean, really,
Exactly.
yeah. After our
Exactly. So
students
if
have driven us crazy, yep, you can wear it that
there are some days where it's just like, oh, reverse hit, cool, I'm not here. Bye, everyone.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
But yeah, this was a really fun project. This was actually my first garment.
Cool.
So
Yeah. So, how much more do you have left on that? Is it just weaving in ends at this stage?
yes.
And it's a summer thing, so you really should finish it. This one you should
Oh,
finish.
I know. And it feels so comfortable. Even over this t-shirt, I feel like I'm sweating more just trying to take it off
I
than
believe you.
yeah, I did not feel like crazy warm in this, and I run hot, so that's saying something. But yeah, no, I really love this tank and I really want to wear it. So
Cool.
along with that, I did that in about a week and a half alongside
Oh wait,
the
real quick
a
question. Real
yeah.
quick question. What's the yarn you used on that one?
Yes, I used Lily the original sugar and cream denim.
Wow, the original one. Wow, okay, cool.
I don't know what that means. I
I
don't
don't know what that
remember.
means either. I think it's just the normal sugar and cream, but it's in it says denim. So is it
Yeah,
cool?
it's really soft. It was really soft to knit. And oh, the needles that I've been using for a lot of my cotton knitting are actually the pony aluminum needles. They're noisy. That aluminum clanging around is noisy, but I think the cotton slides nicely along them, but there's like some grip. I don't know what it is about the aluminum, but it really grips the cotton fibers. So the needles, um, even if you have bigger loops, they still catch really nicely. So you don't have needles just dropping out.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay, cool. All right, so what's our next project?
So the next project was the Tourmaline vest for my partner. It again looked like, I mean, it was modeled on a female dress form, but both the pattern and with how big all the loops are, it is easily worn by anyone. So I love clothing that does not specify gender or necessarily need to be gendered. So this, again, all that's left is literally sewing the pieces together. So here's the back. I was using the Noro Kansashi yarn, which when I looked it up, let me just give you a closer look. So when I was reading the little description on their website of the Kansashi yarn, this is actually, it's a boucle yarn. I can get a better close up here. This was intense trying to yarn or trying to knit. But when I was reading about what inspired this collection of yarn, uh, the kansashi, I guess, are actually ornaments, or I guess you could think of it. Closest thing we have here is like a little corsage or something that Japanese girls would pin in their hair, and it would be like the decorative piece in their hair. I don't. I guess it was just pinned in that they would wear while wearing their kimono and traditional clothing. So
Cool, actually. That's really
yeah,
interesting. Cool.
yeah.
Awesome.
So I would
So
yeah,
there you have
unless
two other panels. Do you have two other panels basically? You just need to sew in.
yeah, yeah. So here's front right or left, and oh, I did make sure to mirror the colors on the front two panels.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's very hippie inspired, but that's
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to knit up like that. The way the yarn balled up, it looked like it was self-striping yarn, but I did not realize with how big these needles are and with the boucle, how big or chunky each stripe was going to be. But I like it. It's yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's
very
cool. Yeah, it's really cool.
looks flowery. I like it.
Yeah.
So two more. I think these are the last two. Wow. Okay. So oh, those, so that Tourmaline lace vest and the capelet tank, I started at the same time and finished them within a day of each other. It took about a week and a half. And then I just whipped right into this Stephen West swingback pullover.
Awesome.
So this one's been a lot of fun. So just to give a brief little view, I'll give some close-ups in a sec. But the yarns I'm using for this are the main color. This cotton viscose blend is the Skackenmeyer Duo Multicolor with Eco Vero viscose, or sorry, Eco Vero trademark viscose. Um, yeah, it's 70% viscose, 30% cotton.
Very cool.
But it yeah, feels nice. It's I wouldn't say it's the softest cotton or softest cotton blend, but it has a kind of quality to it like have you seen those garments that look like they're kind of burlappy, but they have like a paint coating? Or like
I don't know if I've ever seen something like that.
yeah,
Oh,
I have a sweater that
yeah, I do understand exactly what you're saying. Where there's texture underneath.
yeah.
Yeah, there's like a texture to it.
Yeah, but then the coating is like a sheen.
Right.
There's like
So it looks
it's
shiny.
it has yeah, it has that kind of feeling
Mm.
under the fingers knit up. But it's soft though when you wear it. And then the contrast yarn that I have in Stephen West's pattern, his contrast yarn is a rubber coated mohair lace, which
What?
cool. Like I
Okay,
would love
Steven.
to feel that.
Mr.
I would love to
West.
feel that
Mr.
and
West.
see that.
Mr. West. How did you even find this? Mr. West. I don't understand, but okay. Thank you.
Right? Yeah, I went to the website for that yarn. It's a yarn that he doesn't produce, and it looks so cool. Like it kind of looks like it looks like that that Spider-Man character Venom, that like black kind of gooey kind of, but
Yeah.
still that spider web. Yeah, it's that texture
Interesting.
in lace, in mohair lace. So it looks so cool. That's not what I used. I wish. I was not looking to spend that kind of money on an entire spool when I need just a little bit. But what I'm using for this is actually the Lana Grossa silk hair, and that is 70% mohair, 30% silk. So I did not realize in using this how warm these lace panels were actually going to be. Uh, that mohair is toasty.
Yeah. So what do you know the colorway on either of those? Do they have like a colorway
Um,
or anything?
the Duo Multicolor, the colorway is just a number.
Yeah, go ahead and read it out.
It's Yeah, it's color 90 or 00090.
Okay. And what about the other one?
The silk hair, this one it's kind of a nice little sky blue color. The colorway, okay, well, 042.
Yeah, that often happens with these like factory yarns. They get numbered instead of named, and that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and right now I only have the capacity to
I
to
understand.
look up factory yarns.
Yeah.
But I'm being very specific with fiber content, so that's been fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. So tell us a little bit about what you had to do for the construction, because I know you had to make some modifications.
Yes. So for the I dropped a ball of something else. Okay. So for the yarn that I'm using, it was not the yarn that I had initially picked out for this project, but the one that I had picked out, I realized I was going to be at least 150 to 200 yards short. So I needed two more balls of that other yarn. Didn't want to deal with ordering it. Can't remember if I got those on clearance and wiped out the rest of the stock. Who knows. So I went with this one because I had the yardage. But watch out for those wraps per inch, people. So the pattern called for a yarn with 9 wraps per inch. I went with one that was 11 wraps per inch, thinking that on the same size needles it wasn't going to make that big of a difference. Which luckily, in my case, this it's not as oversized as it would have been had I followed the pattern to a T. But there's still enough positive ease, and it actually is slightly form-fitting. So I don't mind that. In the arms, it's more form-fitting, which I actually don't mind. I kind of prefer that so I can actually push a sleeve up and it'll stay. Um, but yeah, the alterations that I had to make were not in the width. The width was fine. It was the length that ended up being far more cropped than I was expecting, and I believe because the pattern actually has a more cropped front with a longer back flap. I thought it was going to be easy enough to just extend that. Little did I realize after I had already done basically the final rows, I had to design in that an extra panel of lace so that I could continue this I don't know, what do you call it? Gradation?
Yeah, kind of it's like a lace gradation, right? Like between the two, like the
Yeah.
gradation of the two patterns. I think what was interesting too, I remember we were on the phone and you were showing it to me and you were like, yeah, I think it might be too short, but you had like already bound off. I'm like, yeah, yo, that is too short. Like you need to lengthen that. And you're like, but I don't want to have to unpick it. I'm like, well, you're not going to wear it. So, and then, what kind of bind off is it? Because I think this is an interesting conversation.
Yes. So it has become my new favorite bind off, the Icelandic bind off. So let me see if this shows up easily enough. Yeah, so it creates this kind of rolled edge It's not like an I-cord edge, but you can graft other knit on or other knits to this edge if you wanted to. So I like the versatility of it, but it also has a bit more stretch for a bind off. So especially for sleeves and these armholes at the bottom where I'm going to attach the rest of the top of the part top of the arm, um, it gives it a little more strength too. So yeah,
Yeah. But when you picked it out, it
it's a
was
little
like really
bigger.
easy to pick out too, right? Like it is so much
Yes,
easier to pick.
that was wild. I have never picked out an Icelandic bind off, but once the once you clip the tail, yeah, you literally just have that last stitch on the needle, and you end up putting the needle through one easy to find loop on top, and then you just pull the yarn through one side, pull it through the other side, go to the next one. Same thing. It was so easy to pick back up. So after that lace, I realized it was going to look a hot mess if I did not figure out some way to do that extended back flap with the bottom edge designed in. So I basically took these decreases for this bottom flap on the back and kind of truncated that a little bit to also show some type of decrease here or show some type of gradation and sectioning.
Very cool. Yeah, the last time I saw
Yeah.
this, it had no sleeves, so this is really cool to see that you've done some work on the sleeves. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so now about the sleeves in the pattern, he dedicated to use that contrast yarn. But I decided because I don't want to play yarn chicken with this cotton 11 wrap per inch, not 9. I did not want to take any chances, so I decided to do an inversion of that lace. So instead of starting with one row of lace and then doing like 8 or 9 rows of cotton and then grading it up from there, I decided to start with a larger swath of cotton. So I actually did this in even numbers, thinking that on the arms, the way it looks proportionally, it'll be fine. So ended up starting with like 8 rows of lace, then doing 6, 4, and then 2. And now just continuing the rest of the arm in the cotton. So that'll be, I think, when I put it on, the lace actually ended up above the elbow. So I think it'll be structurally sound,
Yeah, that's really cool.
especially when I put in the thumb holes. Again, not something in the pattern, but
Nice
you know.
modification though. I'm kind of digging all the modifications. Why not? I mean, make it yours, right?
Exactly. Like that's the point of this, right? It's custom, it's bespoke, it's haute couture. No,
Yes.
maybe not couture,
Oh, it is actually hope.
basically,
It totally is because you're
it
making it
literally is.
to you and to your size and exactly
Exactly.
what you want. And that's the cool part about knitting for yourself, right? So cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
cool.
and I love being able to now start to see where I am in a pattern without necessarily having to put stitch markers everywhere.
Yeah, reading your knitting, that's like a really big step forward once you can really start reading your knitting. I remember I had my very first shawl pattern I think I did was the hitchhiker shawl, and which is like often a first pattern. And I could not tell the difference between when it was purl and when it was knit because it was all garter. And I was just like, I can't tell. And I'd lose stitches off the needle and I put them back on. I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm doing it the right way. But this is also when I knit backwards where I threw the yarn the opposite direction. So everything was twisted. So of course it was confusing. Anyway, so you have one more project to show?
One more, the final one, and this one, oh man, like we had this conversation. I don't know if I should mention the title of the name of
I
it.
think you should because then we can talk about that too.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I feel more comfortable saying this because yeah, we looked it up and there there were what, maybe 4 attempted projects, no, 3 attempted projects in incomplete. They didn't post anything about their work. And then the only finished project was the person who designed it. And the title is the Oh So Easy Vest. Let me tell you, not so easy. It is interesting to knit now, having acquired these other different skills and techniques. I can appreciate certain things about the pattern, but after I do this, I kind of want to knit a comparison of how I think it would actually be oh so easy and see how they compare worn, how they compare on a dress form, and how they compare live flat measurement and all. So I want to do that after I finish this, but it's so Chrissy advised me based on not only difficulty but also patience and lighting and eye strain, um, not to knit in A, cotton, or B, solid black. So what do I do? My two favorite things. I love black and I want to wear something this summer, and I wanted it to be this netted mesh kind of thing. So who's going to stop me?
Nobody's
But
gonna stop you, but yeah.
you warned me. But my challenge was actually not with the yarn. It was not with the seeing it. I've pretty much only been knitting this in daylight or very well lit areas because, yeah, it is all black, and I'm using these aluminum pony needles because you can actually see the stitches against it. Um, but with this, it's so it has a garter stitch edge. All you start,
Yeah, we have to be
you
careful
knit
because
it.
this is a paid for pattern, just so everybody knows. This one is a paid for
Ah,
pattern.
right.
So we can't give away too much, but we can say
Yeah.
you can talk about some of the main things that we saw as problematic, I think.
Yeah. So the way that this netting is done, I assumed it was just going to be, oh, switch to bigger needles and just do some stockinette, which would have been really easy and way easier than this. It wasn't. So, without going into actual stitches that are used, um, it ends up doubling the amount of actual knitting work that you're doing. Um, and that explains why people probably gave up uh, after they got part of the way through this because, yeah, each row right now or each repeat just feels a bit like a slog. Like I have to get through a repeat, take a break for a little bit, like listen to some music, pour another cup of coffee, and then come back to it for another repeat. And then, yeah, it's slow going, but I think the fact that it is creating large enough stitches and loops, it'll hopefully go by pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think one of the other challenges in the pattern wasn't one row you would knit a row with whatever, and then you had to turn
Yes.
around and knit back with a different size needle.
Yes. Yes. No. So one row, not only are you doubling the amount of stitches, the next row, you are basically undoing half of that work while knitting it onto needles one size smaller
Yeah, so
and do it back and forth.
yeah, and that feels really like onerous. And it did say to use straight needles and not a circular needle, but I think, like I don't use straight needles unless they're DPNs nowadays. Like I just
And
don't. Yeah.
and also those would have to be really long needles because this is in worsted weight and it calls for a minimum of 80 stitches. It's knitting, yeah, it's I'm not going to get into the schematic of it, but yeah, it's you're knitting a rectangle. And
That can
80
fit
stitches
on a
is the
human
small size.
body. That can fit on a human
Yeah,
body. Yeah.
yeah, that's like the smallest size. So I can't imagine 80 stitches in worsted weight on one straight needle, let alone having to double the amount of stitches regularly as part of the pattern.
Yeah, that's tricky. That's definitely tricky. So anyway,
So
I'm
it's,
good luck with this because
I
yeah,
mean, it's the thing is I don't mind how it looks. It's just so much work. It's so tedious. And it could be easier work on top of the amount of work.
yeah, and I think, for the amount of work, sometimes like when you do brioche or whatever, or you do color work, like you see like what you're creating along the way, and you can, yes, it takes a long time or a longer time than just knitting something in one color. Um, but it's one of those things where you're kind of seeing what you're creating and it looks so spectacular, you're willing to put in the work. I mean, you create so many things that have that netting texture already that don't have as much work attached, and I think that's kind of where the challenge lies. Like, is it really producing a fabric that is so different from how you could do it otherwise, right? Like, it just makes me
Exactly.
wonder, is the work worth what it looks like, or could you just get to the same result quicker doing something else? And I think, comment below, what do you think about this? I mean, how would you go about doing it? I mean, we talked yesterday about the idea of, like, because we were talking about the ZickZack shawl, and how, because it's a shawl now, let's be real. Like how, if you do it for a few days, then you put it down, and then you can come back to it still, so it still feels fresh, so you're not always working on it nonstop with kind of blinders on. Because I think also you are someone that really does knit fast, and you like quick results. I mean, you're knitting garments super fast. Of course, they're like worsted or Aran weight or even bulky at times, so that does make sense.
Yeah.
It's not like you're slogging through a fingering weight sweater like I do in a not very small size, right? So it's like, so there is something to, like, sometimes having multiple projects and multiple things on the go, so you don't get bored, so that you don't lose your knitting mojo, because I think that becomes dangerous, because you want to be able to love your craft, but if it feels like a slog, who wants to do that? So I'm curious what other people do. I know that there are some podcasters, like there's this one in particular I watch. It's called The Knitting Project is the name of her podcast. She's from England. Her name is Sharon, and she literally has a day for each project, but she only does a 6-day rotation, so that it's not every Monday she's working on the same thing. So, like, let's say Monday is a shawl, and then Tuesday is a blanket, and then Wednesday is something. And so she does 6 days, but then on Sunday she goes to what she was working on Monday, because also different days have different amounts of time for knitting for her, and that way no one project gets boring for her, right? But it's also a manageable amount of WIPs, because I think we both can agree, like, I get stressed out if I have too many WIPs on the needles. Like, it really stresses me out. So yeah, comment down below if you have some ideas, that we can both learn from. So Josh, is there anything else you want to share with everybody today?
Uh, I I think other than watch out how many projects you start, because it is so easy to want to start the next one.
Yeah,
That's
no.
that's what I'm noticing.
Yeah, you know what? How about this? Why don't we invite some of the viewers if they want to participate? We're going to be doing a knit along. I think, what day did we decide to start this, Josh? Do you remember?
Oh, it is on August 25th.
So on August 25th, we've done knit alongs before, where we've done a knit along on the botanic shawl, and we started at the same time, but we ended up not finishing it at the same time, but that's okay because we were both working on different projects. So there's no end goal of when you get this done. Like, it's just, we're just going to start at the same time to be able to compare notes. So we're going to be knitting Rocket Tea by Tanis, Lavallee. We're both going to knit that. And what's going to be really interesting is, of course, I'm knitting a women's version and Josh is knitting a men's version. So we're going to, if you want to join in and start with us on August 25th, also let us know below. And if people are interested in us like hosting a live Zoom for anybody that wants to start with us, that'd be great. It would have to be Eastern time. It would have to be after we're done with work, because that's just life. But if you're interested in joining, just let us know, and we'll set something up for people to join with us on that day. And if anything changes, we'll let those people know as well, because life might life that day. As Josh knows, life has been lifing, especially with the full moon. The children we teach have decided to go insane this week. But anyhow, I'm gonna be knitting mine in what am I doing this? Oh, I'm using 2 yards. One is my Murky Depths, which is one of my favorites, and it's in this beautiful base that's like, it's got a lot of silk in it, and it's like a gray with like baby pink. And then that's going to be the main regular stripes. It's in fingering weight. And then the other, because I don't do mohair, I'm using a silk lace weight to do where the mohair would be, and it's in that same baby pink, but it's from Knit Picks, because silk is expensive and Knit Picks is not so expensive. We got to manage the budget somehow. So Josh, do you have yarn picked out for this yet?
I will get back to you on that.
I'll have him back before we have the knit along starting, so that you guys can see. But yeah, we'll show off our yarn maybe prior to that, so people can get some ideas. But we would love to have everybody join with us if you're interested in doing that pattern. And then, maybe I should probably actually set up a Ravelry group. And if people want to show off their yarns and their finished projects, I'm sure I can pull some sort of gift out of my closet, or find something. So if you want to join along, just let us know. Thanks so much for joining us today, Josh. As always, it's a pleasure. I'd love to have you back whenever. It's just great to have you on here. And we're going to be making a lot more knitters out of the musicians in our program. So we may see some more people join us down the line. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.